Joining us now, he's tied to be governor just off his victory on Tuesday, the new Republican gubernatorial candidate for Virginia, Ed Gillespie. Ed,
good morning.
Good to have you.
Good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Hey, also, let me congratulate you on your win on Tuesday night. I want to also thank you for giving us and my colleagues the opportunity to do our award-winning election night show right from your headquarters there. And the good news is you provided us, Ed, with a little more suspense than we thought we'd have. Thanks for that.
You're welcome. I'm here to serve.
That's what I was thinking about, right? We appreciate that. You are here to serve. We had a good time, and your whole staff, I got to tell you, was fabulous to us. I want to give a couple of shout-outs to your campaign manager, Chris Levitt, who set the whole thing up, and then also Tucker Obenchain, who made sure that everything was set for us for that night, and we really appreciate that. Now, bottom line is, you're the candidate. First question, it seems like on Tuesday night you didn't necessarily connect with all the voters of Virginia, right? Because you got under 50%. Trump voters, Corey Stewart voters, Frank Wagner voters. How do you get the party back together and get everybody into the Ed Gillespie for governor fold?
Well, we're working on that very hard right now, reaching out to folks. And as you know, and as I said Tuesday night, you know, we want and we need those who worked hard for Frank Wagner and Corey Stewart. Not only do they appreciate your commitment and dedication, but I do too. And we've got to come together, all hands on deck, to defeat Ralph Northam, who, as you noted, John, is the most liberal candidate ever to run for governor of the Commonwealth in the history of Virginia. And when you look at the positions he took in his race to the far left in the Democratic primary, you know, they're awful for us here in the Commonwealth. And the contrast, the choices could not be more clear in November. Mm-hmm. And let's take a couple of them. I mean, taxes. I'm for a 10% across the board cut in our individual income tax rate. First time they've ever been cut in 45 years. It's time for that. We've got to get our economy growing again. People need tax relief. We want to make Virginia more attractive to retirees. Ralph Northam voted in the General Assembly for tax increase after tax increase, to raise gas taxes, to raise property taxes, to raise real estate transaction taxes, to raise sales taxes. And I'm the candidate in this race who's fighting for the taxpayers of Virginia. If you look at his energy policy, you know, he wants to impose a cap and trade regime here in Virginia and a clean power plan now that the EPA has rolled it back. And that will further devastate coal country, and we'll have more laid off coal miners. It'll make it hard for us to foster advanced manufacturing here. It's going to raise the prices for consumers, and that hits the poor the hardest. And I'm the one fighting for laid off coal miners and factory workers who are worried about being laid off, and the poorest among us who get hit disproportionately hard by Ralph Northam's policies. If you look at sanctuary cities, he voted to allow for the establishment of sanctuary cities in the Commonwealth of Virginia. That will not make us safer. And I'll fight to make sure that our communities and neighborhoods are safer. And the choices just could not be more clear. Those are just a few. There are many, many more that are going to become clear in the course of this campaign.
Well, the other thing I just want to keep reminding Ed Gillespie, our listeners of, is that if you're a Trump voter or you support the president, let's not forget that in TV ad after TV ad, Lieutenant Governor Ralph Northam ran ads calling the president a narcissistic maniac, which basically is an affront to anybody like myself that voted for Trump. He basically thinks we're all too stupid to have a job. And he did that in his campaign ads in order to perhaps win the battle with Perriello. But I think that Trump voters, Ed, are going to come out on November 7th like you have no idea. And I think you're going to get all of them. They're going to turn out just over that and some of this other stuff that's gone on. And these people, you know, saying they're the resistance or whatever they're trying to do. He is the president of the United States. I want to get to...
Hey, John, can we just pause everything? Look,
yeah.
It's clear Ralph Northam's an angry liberal.
Yes.
And he doesn't just disagree with those who don't have his liberal point of view. He disdains us. He looks down on us. And, that's not what we need in a governor. It really is not.
Now, Ed, respond to this. One of the criticisms that they have, they said that, well, if Ed Gillespie gets elected governor and there continues to be a conservative House, which there is, there'll be no matter what happens, then it's possible that he would sign into legislation some of these social bills like they had in North Carolina that would hurt the state's economy. How do you respond to that, Ed?
Well, in the course of the primary, I made clear that, I was glad to see the Trump administration roll back the federal mandate on bathroom, the so-called, bathroom policy, the transgender bathroom policy. And my point was, I have faith in our local elected officials and school boards and community leaders to handle issues like this. But I did not support an HB2 style bill in the General Assembly because while I don't think the federal government should issue such mandates, I don't think the state should either. I think that the government that governs closest to the people governs best, and I have faith in them, and that is my view. And the fact is, I am a conservative, and I will stand for the protection of innocent human life and our First Amendment freedom of religion, our Second Amendment individual right to keep and bear arms. At the same time, the biggest thing facing the Commonwealth of Virginia today is our stagnant economic growth and the lack of opportunity for too many Virginians. Our economic growth rate last year was 0.6%, with 39th in the country among the states in economic growth. And at the end of the next governorship, this governorship, John, is not just going to set a course for the next 4 years. I truly believe that this governorship is going to determine the future of the Commonwealth for 20 to 30 years. And we're either going to end up at the end of this next governorship when it comes to taxes and regulation, compulsory unionism, looking a lot more like states to our north, New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, all of which are in the bottom half of states in economic growth, and yet unfortunately are ahead of us in their growth rates. They're doing better than we are right now. Or we're going to look more like states to our south, the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, all of which are in the top 20 states and have dynamic economies, entrepreneurship flourishing, innovation, opportunities for the young people graduating from the high schools and colleges and universities. We're either going to become the northernmost southeastern state or the southernmost northeastern state. That's where we are. This is a critical juncture for the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I'm for more opportunities, more jobs, helping people lift themselves out of poverty and pay raises and higher wages for the working families of Virginia. And my policies will do that. Ralph Northam's will just make things worse.
All right. Now, when you talk about increasing economic growth in Virginia and getting more jobs, there's no question Terry McAuliffe was a great salesman for Virginia. He got a lot. He went out across the country and the globe and brought a lot of companies into Virginia and got jobs in here, good paying jobs. Are you going to kind of continue that path that McAuliffe has done? And then how do you change the economic environment so that the jobs are not organic so you don't have to get on an airplane?
Well, first of all,
John,
I'll be a relentless marketer for the Commonwealth all across the country and all across the globe. But the fact is, the data points I just shared with you, that we are 39th out of 50 states and 0.6 of a percentage point in economic growth last year demonstrates that what we're doing is not working. And we've got to do things differently. And, whale hunting, as I call it, trying to take our taxpayer dollars and package them up and throw them at a Fortune 100 company to lure them into the Commonwealth to move their headquarters lock, stock, and barrel. That can't be the singular focus of our economic development policies. It's not working. We hit a 10-year low in labor force participation rate last year. We've shed 69,000 manufacturing jobs over the past decade. We're losing like 7,000 manufacturing jobs a year on average. And that's not an aberration. That is a pattern. And the future of Virginia lies in more natural organic growth and a more patient approach, fostering more small business formation and small business expansion, putting a greater focus on startups and scale-ups, making it easier to open a new business and grow an existing one. The sweet spot of job creation is when a small business is becoming a bigger business. And historically, small businesses have led in job creation. 2/3 of new jobs come from small businesses. We need to make sure that it is easier for Virginians to open and grow a business here, and my policies do that. One of the reasons I cut the individual income tax rather than the corporate income tax is that small business owners don't pay a corporate income tax.
Right.
They pay in the individual code,
right?
Subchapter S and LLC, and we need to make it easier for them to hire, pay their employees more, expand, open up. We've got too much regulatory burden, which hits small businesses disproportionately hard. A big business can absorb the cost of regulation in a way small businesses can't. And we've also got to reform our education system to make sure we have the workforce of today and the future. And so that is a more patient, long-term approach, but it is the right approach. We should be first in the nation in job creation and economic growth, not 39th. We should be first. When you look at our assets, our port, our people, our fertile lands, our vast natural resources, our great colleges and universities, our natural beauty and historic landmarks, and our location, there is no doubt in my mind that Virginia should be first in the nation, but we've got to change our policy to make that happen. And it's going to require, like I say, a more patient approach. It's going to be less flashy press releases coming out of the governor's office, claiming credit for things. And it'll take a little while to kick in, but it'll kick in. And it may not show up at the end of the first 4 years of these policies during what hopefully will be my governorship. But I hope the governor after me or the governor after that person is the most popular governor in the history of Virginia, because we're number one in the country. Not just in best states for doing business where we need to be, where we were just 6 years ago, and now we're not even in the top 10, but more important, number one in job creation and economic growth and opportunity for Virginians. Less
show, more go. Makes sense. You can steal that if you want.
Thank you.
Yes, hey, I'm here to serve, just like you were on election night. Let's get to Northern Virginia. The Republicans have lost 8 statewide races in Virginia in a row. It always comes down to Northern Virginia. It's like we sat there in 2014. You had to lead the whole night, and Fairfax hadn't come in. When Fairfax comes in, you go from being ahead by 10,000 to behind by 8. Happens all the time. How does Ed Gillespie cut in to the majorities that Democrats roll up in Northern Virginia? Let me give you an example. In 2016, Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump in Fairfax, Arlington, and Alexandria by 340,000 votes. 340 in 3 cities. Now, I was the chairman of the campaign at the time. We knew we couldn't lose by over 125. It was almost triple that. How do you stop that bleeding, Ed?
I think it helps for us to have a nominee from Fairfax County. Kathy and I raised our children here. Our ties are in this community. I know how to campaign in Northern Virginia. Even against Mark Warner, I was able to carry Loudoun County. That's no easy feat, John. Mm-hmm. And I'll do better in Fairfax, Arlington, and Alexandria in this election. And I'll give you mentioned the margins for Hillary Clinton up here, and the fact is that she carried Fairfax, I believe, with 71% of the vote.
Yep.
But you know what? 54% of the voters voted against an increased meals tax.
Right.
People are taxed to death in Northern Virginia, and they appreciate my putting forward tax relief that results in, when you combine the tax relief and the creation of more than 53,000 good-paying, full-time, private sector jobs in the Commonwealth, that's a 25% increase. That's what an independent economic analysis of my tax plan concluded would be the result. You know, that combination of more full-time work, better paying jobs, and tax relief results in nearly $1,300 a year more in disposable income, higher disposable income for the average family of 4. And in Northern Virginia, with the cost of living and the high taxes, let me tell you, that resonates. And I can tell you from working parade routes and knocking doors, it resonates very, very strongly. And I, like I say, know how to campaign in the communities here in Northern Virginia. And I'm in my first 2 ads, as you know, my first ads that I released had a Korean language version and a Spanish language version. We'll be doing more of that as the campaign progresses. And I know how to campaign in Northern Virginia and win.
Well, look, you certainly have a track record there. You're going to have to do that. I think you're going to do very well in Southwest Virginia. I think you're going to hold your own in Hampton Roads. So that Northern Virginia, you just have to hold that volume of Democrats down. But Ed, I think you're going to win this race. I can just tell you straight out. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm for your candidacy. And I really want to compliment something you've done. And we talked about this earlier with John Whitback. You ran this campaign, spent a lot of money. You didn't go negative on anybody one time that I can remember. No negative ads, no negative social media, nothing.
I did not.
And so you've made no enemies, Ed.
Well, I wanted to be able to bring our party together and have a unified party going into the fall. We have a unified ticket, which is great. And as you know, Jill Vogel and John Adams and I were traveling the Commonwealth on Wednesday up until the tragic shooting in Alexandria, at which point we changed what was a rally in Northern Virginia, frankly, to a prayer service for those victims, Congressman Scalise and others, and to pray for the law enforcement community who played such an essential role in saving lives there, as they always do, and for our Commonwealth and our country. That was the right thing to do, and we canceled the visits in Virginia Beach and Roanoke and Bristol. But I can tell you that there's a chemistry there, and I love being out on the trail with Jill and John. They are great candidates.
Right.
We're a great ticket. We are bringing the party together. We've been welcoming into the fold. I was in the Loudoun County event on Friday with Dick Black and Dave LaRock and Tag Greason, but also about 120 people on Friday at around 3:00 in Loudoun. And two Corey Stewart supporters came up to me afterward and said they had supported Corey in the primary, but they were there for me, and I told them how much I appreciated that and gave them my card, welcomed them into our campaign efforts, and we've gotten Frank Wagner folks coming on board, and we are open arms. We got to have all hands on deck here. This is a critically important election, and I do feel that we're going to win it. I feel it in my bones. And that first public poll that came out after the nomination contests were over, 46-46, dead heat race. That's the nature of Virginia. And we are gonna work tirelessly every day, and I'm gonna fight for these Virginians who are getting laid off in Southwest Virginia, or those young adults who are graduating from our high schools and colleges and can't find career paths here in the Commonwealth and are moving out. We've had 3 straight years where more people moved out of Virginia than into Virginia. I'm going to fight for our communities and neighborhoods to be safer from gang violence, and we're not going to have sanctuary cities here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm going to fight to hold on and protect our right to work laws, and that's been a source of bipartisan support for decades, and Ralph Northam abandoned support for our right to work laws. I don't believe people should have to join a union in order to have work, and should have their hourly wages, money taken away from them in the form of compulsory union dues. And Kentucky and West Virginia just became right to work states.
Right.
And Ralph Northam wants to take us in the exact opposite direction. The stakes of this election couldn't be higher. And I appreciate your pointing out that I did not attack either of my opponents in the primary. I wanted to be able to, was honoring the 11th commandment, and I wanted to be able to bring our party together at the end of the day so that we can win in November, and I'm seeing the benefit of that now.
All right, we're out of time. I want to thank Ed Gillespie for being with us today. Ed, I think you got a heck of a shot to win this race. I really do. I think you're going to be the guy that breaks the trend. Want more information? Go to edforvirginia.com. That's edforvirginia.com. Ed, thanks for being with us.
You bet, John. Thanks for having me on. Good to be with you again.
edforvirginia.com. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. We'll be right back.